The Ship That Found Herself by Rudyard Kipling. Tea was her first voyage, and though she was but a cargo steamer of 2,500 tons, she was the very best of her kind, the outcome of 40 years of experiments and improvements in framework and machinery, and her designers and owner thought as much of her as though she had been the Lucania. Anyone can make a floating hotel that will pay expenses if he puts enough money into the saloon, and charges for private bath suites of rooms and such like. But in these days of competition and low freights, every square inch of a cargo boat must be built for cheapness, great hold capacity, and a certain steady speed. This boat was perhaps 240 feet long and 32 feet wide, with arrangements that enabled her to carry cattle on her main and sheep on her upper deck, if she wanted to, but her great glory was the amount of cargo that she could store away in her holds. Her owners, where a very well-known Scotch firm came round with her from the north, where she had been launched and christened, and fitted to Liver 239 Pool, where she was to take cargo for New York, and the owner's daughter Miss Fraser went to and fro on the clean decks admiring the new paint, and the brass work, and the patent winches, and particularly the strong straight bow over which she had cracked a bottle of champagne, when she named the steamer the Dimbula. It was a beautiful September afternoon, and the boat in all her newness was painted lead colour, with a red funnel, looked very fine indeed. Her house flag was flying, and her whistle from time to time acknowledged the salutes of friendly boats who saw that she was new to the high and narrow seas, and wished to make her welcome. And now, said Miss Fraser delightedly to the captain, she's a real ship, isn't she? It seems only the other day father gave the order for her and Noe's. N.T. she a beauty. The girl was proud of the firm, and talked as though she were the controlling partner. Oh, she's no so bad, the skipper replied cautiously, but I'm sayin' that it takes more than christenin' to mak' a ship in the nature o' things, Miss Fraser, if you follow me. She's just irons and rivets and plates put into the form of a ship. She has to find herself yet. I thought father said she was exceptionally well found. So she is, said the skipper with a laugh, but 240 it's this way. Why, ships, Miss Fraser, she's all here, but the parts of her have not learned to work together, yet they've had no chance. The engines are working beautifully, I can hear them. Yes, indeed, but there's more than engines to a ship. Every inch of her, you'll understand, has to be livened up, and made to work. Why, it's neighbour sweetenin' her, we call it technically. And how will you do it? The girl asked. We can no more than drive and steer her and so forth, but if we have rough weather this trip it's likely she'll learn the rest by heart. For a ship, you'll observe, Miss Fraser, is in no sense a rigid body closed at both ends. She's a highly complex structure, o' various and conflicting strains, why tissues, that must give and tack according to her personal modulus of elasticity. Mr. Buchanan, the chief engineer, was coming toward them. I'm sayin' to Miss Fraser here that our little Dimbula has to be sweetened yet, and nothin' but a gale will do it. How's all? Why, your engines buck. Well, not true by plumb and rule, o' course, but there's no spontaneity. Yet he turned to the girl. Take my word, Miss Fraser, and maybe ye'll comprehend later, even after a pretty girl's christened a ship, it does not follow that there's such a thing as a ship under the men that work her. 241. I was sayin' the very same, Mr. Buchanan, the skipper interrupted. That's more metaphysical than I can follow, said Miss Fraser, laughing. Why, so you're good Scotch, and I knew your mother's father. He was Fra Dumfriesiev, a vested right in metaphysics, Miss Fraser, just as ye have in the Dimbula, the engineer said. Well, we must go down to the deep waters and earn Miss Fraser her dividends. Will you not come to my cabin for tea? Said the skipper. Well, bein' dark the night, and when you're goin' back to Glasgow, ye can think of us loadin' her down and drivin' her forthall for your sake. In the next few days they stowed some 4,000 tons dead weight into the Dimbula, and took her out from Liverpool. As soon as she met the lift of the open water, she naturally began to talk. If you lay your ear to the side of the cabin, next time you are in a steamer, you will hear hundreds of little voices, in every direction, thrilling and buzzing and whispering and popping and gurgling and sobbing and squeaking, exactly like a telephone in a thunderstorm. Wooden ships shriek and growl and grunt, but iron vessels throb and quiver through all their hundreds of ribs and thousands of rivets. The Dimbula was very strongly built, and every piece of her had a letter or number or both to describe it, and every piece 242 had been hammered or forged or rolled or punched by man, and had lived in the roar and rattle of the shipyard for months. Therefore, every piece had its own separate voice in exact proportion to the amount of trouble spent upon it. Cast iron as a rule says very little, but mild steel plates, and wrought iron and ribs and beams that have been much bent and welded and riveted talk continuously. Their conversation, of course, is not half as wise as our human talk, because they are all, though they do not know it, bound down one to the other in a black darkness, where they cannot tell what is happening near them, nor what will overtake them next. As soon as she had cleared the Irish coast, a sullen, grey-headed old wave of the Atlantic climbed leisurely over her straight bows, and sat down on her steam-capstan, used for hauling up the anchor. Now the capstan and the engine that drove it had been newly painted red and green, besides which nobody likes being ducked. "Don't you do that again," the capstan sputtered through the teeth of his cogs. "Hi, where's the fellow gone?" The wave had slouched overside with a plop and a chuckle, but plenty more, where he came from, said a brother wave, and went through and over the capstan, who was bolted firmly to an iron plate on the iron deck beams, below 243. "Can't you keep still up there?" said the deck beams. "What's the matter with you? 1 minute, you weigh twice as much as you ought to, and the next you don't." "It is NT my fault," said the capstan. "There's a green brute outside that comes and hits me on the head. Tell that to the shipwrights. You've been in position for months, and you've never wriggled like this before. If you are NT careful, you'll strain us." "Talking of strain," said a low, rasping, unpleasant voice, "are any of you fellows, you deck beams, we mean aware that those exceedingly ugly knees of yours happen to be riveted into our structure ours?" "Who might you be?" the deck beams inquired. "Oh, nobody in particular," was the answer. "We're only the port and starboard upper deck stringers, and if you persist in heaving and hiking like this, we shall be reluctantly compelled to take steps. Now the stringers of the ship are long iron girders, so to speak, that run lengthways from stern to bow. They keep the iron frames, what are called ribs in a wooden ship, in place, and also help to hold the ends of the deck beams, which go from side to side of the ship's stringers. Always consider themselves most important because they are so long. You will take steps, will you?" This was a 244 long echoing rumble. It came from the frame, scores and scores of them, each one about 18 inches distant from the next, and each riveted to the stringers in 4 places. "We think you will have a certain amount of trouble in that, and thousands of the little rivets that held everything together," whispered you will stop quivering, and be quiet. "Hold on, brethren, hold on, heart punches." "What's that?" "Rivets have no teeth, so they cannot chatter with fright, but they did their best as a fluttering jar swept along the ship from stern to bow, and she shook like a rat in a terrier's mouth." An unusually severe pitch, for the sea was rising, had lifted the big throbbing screw nearly to the surface, and it was spinning round in a kind of soda water, half sea and half air, going much faster than was proper, because there was no deep water for it to work in. As it sank again, the engines, and they were triple expansion 3 cylinders in a row, snorted through all their 3 pistons. "Was that a joke, you fellow outside? It's an uncommonly poor one. How are we to do our work if you fly off the handle that way?" "I did NT fly off the handle," said the screw, twirling huskily at the end of the screw shaft. "If I had, you'd have been scrapyern by this time. The sea dropped away from under me, and I had nothing to catch on to. That's all 245. "That's all you call it," said the thrust block, whose business it is to take the push of the screw, for if a screw had nothing to hold it back, it would crawl right into the engineer room. It is the holding back of the screwing action that gives the drive to a ship. I know I do my work deep down and out of sight, but I warn you, I expect justice. All I ask for is bare justice. Why can't you push steadily and evenly instead of whizzing like a whirligig, and making me hot under all my collars?" The thrust block had 6 collars, each faced with brass, and he did not wish to get them heated. All the bearings that supported the 50 feet of screw shaft, as it ran to the stern, whispered, "Justice, give us justice." "I can only give you what I can get," the screw answered. "Look out. It's coming again." He rose with a roar as the dimbula plunged, and whack flack whack whack went the engines furiously, for they had little to check them. "I am the noblest outcome of human ingenuity. Mr. Buchanan says so," squealed the high-pressure cylinder. "This is simply ridiculous." The piston went up savagely, and choked, for half the steam behind it was mixed with dirty water. "Help, oiler, fitter, stoker. Help, I'm choking," it gasped. Never in the history of maritime invention has such a calamity overtaken one so young and strong. "And if I go, who's to drive the ship?" 246. "Hush, oh hush," whispered the steam, who of course had been to sea many times before he used to spend his leisure ashore in a cloud or a gutter or a flower pot or a thunderstorm or anywhere else where water was needed. "That's only a little priming, a little carrying over, as they call it. It'll happen all night on and off. I don't say it's nice, but it's the best we can do under the circumstances." "What difference can circumstances make? I'm here to do my work and clean dry steam blow." "Circumstances," the cylinder roared. The circumstances will attend to the blowing. I've worked on the North Atlantic run a good many times. It's going to be rough before morning. It is distressingly calm now, said the extra strong frames. They were called web frames in the engineer room. There's an upward thrust that we don't understand. And there's a twist that is very bad for our brackets and diamond plates. And there's a sort of west-northwesterly pull that follows the twist, which seriously annoys us. We mention this because we happen to cost a good deal of money, and we feel sure that the owner would not approve of our being treated in this frivolous way. I am afraid the matter is out of owner's hand for the present, said the steam, slipping into the condenser. You're left to your own devices till the weather betters. I would mind the weather, said a flat 247 bass voice. Below, it's this confounded cargo that's breaking my heart. I am the garboard strake, and I am twice as thick as most of the others, and I ought to know something. The garboard strake is the lowest plate in the bottom of a ship, and the Dimbula's garboard strake was nearly 3/4 of an inch mild steel. The sea pushes me up in a way I should never have expected. The strake grunted, and the cargo pushes me down, and between the two I don't know what I'm supposed to do. When in doubt, hold on, rumbled the steam, making head in the boilers. Yes, but there's only dark and cold and hurry down here, and how do I know whether the other plates are doing their duty? Those bulwark plates up above, I've heard, ain't more than 5/16 of an inch thick. Scandalous, I call it. I agree with you, said a huge web frame by the main cargo hatch. He was deeper and thicker than all the others, and curved halfway across the ship in the shape of half an arch, to support the deck, where deck beams would have been in the way of cargo coming up and down. I work entirely unsupported, and I observe that I am the sole strength of this vessel so far as my vision extends. The responsibility, I assure you, is enormous. I believe the money value of the cargo is over £150,000. Think of that, 248. And every pound of it is dependent on my personal exertions here, spoke a sea valve that communicated directly with the water outside, and was seated not very far from the garboard strake. I rejoice to think that I am a Prince Hyde valve with best para rubber facings. 5 patents cover me. I mention this without pride. 5 separate, and several patents, each one finer than the other. At present I am screwed fast. Should I open, you would immediately be swamped. This is incontrovertible. Patent things always use the longest words they can. It is a trick that they pick up from their inventors. That's news, said a big centrifugal bilge pump. I had an idea that you were employed to clean decks and things with. At least I've used you for that more than once. I forget the precise number, in thousands of gallons, which I am guaranteed to throw per hour. But I assure you, my complaining friends, that there is not the least danger. I alone am capable of clearing any water that may find its way here by my biggest deliveries. We pitched then. The sea was getting up in workmanlike style. It was a dead westerly gale blown from under a ragged opening of green sky, narrowed on all sides by fat grey clouds, and the wind bit like pincers as it fretted the spray into lacework on the flanks of the waves. 249. I tell you what it is, the foremast telephoned down its wire stays. I am up here and I can take a dispassionate view of things. There's an organized conspiracy against us, I am sure of it, because every single one of these waves is heading directly for our bows. The whole sea is concerned in it, and so's the wind. It's awful. What's awful, said a wave, drowning the capstan for the 100th time. This organized conspiracy on your part, the capstan gurgled, taking his cue from the mast. Organized bubbles and spindrift. There has been a depression in the Gulf of Mexico. Excuse me. He leaped overside, but his friends took up the tale one after another. Which has advanced. That wave hove green water over the funnel. As far as Cape Hatteras he drenched the bridge, and is now going out to Ceto Sea. The third went free in 3 surges, making a clean sweep of a boat, which turned bottom up and sank in the darkening troughs alongside, while the broken falls whipped the davits. That's all there is to it, seethed the white water roaring through the scuppers. There's no animus in our proceedings, we're only meteorological corollaries. Is it going to get any worse, said the bow 250 anchor, chained down to the deck, where he could only breathe once in 5 minutes. Not knowing, can't say. Wind may blow a bit by midnight, thanks awfully, goodbye. The wave that spoke so politely had travelled some distance aft, and found itself all mixed up on the deck amidships, which was a well-deck sunk between high bulwarks. One of the bulwark plates, which was hung on hinges to open outward, had swung out, and passed the bulk of the water back to the sea again with a clean smack. Evidently that's what I am made for, said the plate, closing again, with a sputter of pride. Oh no, you don't, my friend. The top of a wave was trying to get in from the outside, but as the plate did not open in that direction, the defeated water spurted back. "Not bad for 5/16 of an inch," said the bulwark plate. "My work, I see, is laid down for the night," and it began opening and shutting, as it was designed to do with the motion of the ship. "We are not what you might call idle," groaned all the frames together, as the Dimbula climbed. A big wave lay on her side at the top, and shot into the next hollow, twisting in the descent. A huge swell pushed up exactly under her middle, and her bow and stern hung free with nothing to support them. Then one joking wave caught her up at the bow, and another at the stern, while the rest of the water slunk 251 away from under her, just to see how she would like it, so she was held up at her two ends only, and the weight of the cargo and the machinery fell on the groaning iron keels and bilge stringers. Ease off there," roared the garboard strake. "I want 1/8 of an inch fair play, do you hear me, you rivets?" Ease off," cried the bilge stringers. "Don't hold us so tight to the frames." "Ease off," grunted the deck beams, as the Dimbula rolled fearfully. "You've cramped our knees into the stringers, and we can't move. Ease off, you flat-headed little nuisances." Then two converging seas hit the bows, one on each side, and fell away in torrents of streaming thunder. "Ease off," shouted the forward collision bulkhead. "I want to crumple up, but I am stiffened in every direction. Ease off, you dirty little forger filings, let me breathe." All the hundreds of plates that are riveted to the frames and make the outside skin of every steamer echoed the call, for each plate wanted to shift and creep a little, and each plate, according to its position, complained against the rivets. We can't help it," they murmured in reply. "We're put here to hold you, and we're going to do it. You never pull us twice in the same direction. If you'd say what 252 you were going to do next, we'd try to meet your views." "As far as I could feel," said the upper deck planking, "and that was 4 inches thick. Every single iron near me was pushing or pulling in opposite directions. Now what's the sense of that, my friends? Let us all pull together." "Pull any way you please," roared the funnel, "so long as you don't try your experiments on me. I need 14 wire ropes, all pulling in different directions, to hold me steady. Isn't that so?" "We believe you, my boy," whistled the funnel stays through their clinched teeth, as they twanged in the wind from the top of the funnel to the deck. "Nonsense, we must all pull together," the decks repeated. "Pull lengthways." "Very good," said the stringers. "Then start pushing sideways. When you get wet, be content to run gracefully fore and aft, and curve in at the ends as we do." "No curves at the end, a very slight workmanlike curve from side to side, with a good grip at each knee and little pieces welded on," said the deck beams. "Fiddle," cried the iron pillars of the deep dark hold. "Who ever heard of curves? Stand up straight, be a perfectly round column, and carry tons of good solid weight, like that there. A big sea smashed on the deck above, and the pillars stiffened themselves to the load 253. "Straight up and down is not bad," said the frames who ran that way in the sides of the ship, "but you must also expand yourselves sideways. Expansion is the law of life, children. Open out, open out." "Come back," said the deck beams savagely, as the upward heave of the sea made the frames try to open. "Come back to your bearings, you slack-jawed irons." "Rigidity, rigidity, rigidity," thumped the engines. "Absolute, unvarying rigidity. You see," whined the rivets in chorus, "no two of you will ever pull alike, and you blame it all on us. We only know how to go through a plate and bite down on both sides, so that it can't and must and shan't move." "I've got 1/fraction of an inch play at any rate," said the garboard strake triumphantly. "So he had, and all the bottom of the ship felt the easier for it." "Then we're no good," sobbed the bottom rivets. We were order red never to give, and we've given, and the sea will come in and we'll all go to the bottom together. First we're blamed for everything unpleasant, and now we have the consolation of having done our work." "Don't say I told you," whispered the steam consolingly, "but between you and me and the 254 last cloud I came from, it was bound to happen sooner or later. You had to give a fraction, and you've given without knowing it. Now hold on as before." "What's the use? A few hundred rivets chattered. We've given, and the sooner we confess that we can't keep the ship together and go off our little heads, the easier it will be. No rivet forged can stand this strain." "No one rivet was ever meant to share it among you," the steam answered. "The others can have my share. I am going to pull out," said a rivet in one of the forward plates. "If you go, others will follow," hissed the steam. "There's nothing so contagious in a boat as rivets going. Why, I knew a little chap like Yao was 1/8 of an inch fatter though on a steamer tow. Be sure she was only 1,200 tons now. I come to think of it, in exactly the same place as you are. He pulled out in a bit of a bobble of a sea not half as bad as this, and he started all his friends on the same butt strap, and the plates opened like a furnace door, and I had to climb into the nearest fog bank while the boat went down. Now that's peculiarly disgraceful, said the rivet. Fatter than me was he, and in a steamer not half our tonnage. Reedy little peg, I blush for the family, sir. He settled himself more 255 firmly than ever in his place, and the steam chuckled. You see, he went on quite gravely, a rivet, and especially a rivet in your position, is really the one indispensable part of the ship. The steam did not say that he had whispered the very same thing to every single piece of iron aboard. There is no sense in telling too much truth. And all that while the little Dimbula pitched and chopped and swung and slewed, and lay down as though she were going to die, and got up as though she had been stung, and threw her nose round and round in circles half a dozen times, as she dipped, for the gale was at its worst. It was inky black in spite of the tearing white froth on the waves, and to top everything the rain began to fall in sheets, so that you could not see your hand before your face. This did not make much difference to the ironwork below, but it troubled the foremast a good deal. Now it's all finished, he said dismally. The conspiracy is too strong for us. There is nothing left but to. Hurrah, biarararara, biararararapi, roared the steam through the foghorn, till the decks quivered. Don't be frightened below, it's only me just throwing out a few words in case anyone happens to be rolling round tonight. You don't mean to say there's anyone, except 256, us on the sea in such weather, said the funnel in a husky snuffle. Scores of M, said the steam, clearing its throat. Arararararea. Biarara piarararapi, it's a trifle windy up here and great boilers. How it rains. We're drowning, said the scuppers. They had been doing nothing else all night, but this steady thrash of rain above them seemed to be the end of the world. That's all right, well, be easier in an hour or two. First the wind, and then the rain. Soon you may make sail again. Diararara. Diararara diararapi. I have a notion that the sea is going down already. If it does, you'll learn something about rolling. We've only pitched till now, by the way, our you chaps in the hold, a little easier than you were. There was just as much groaning and straining as ever, but it was not so loud or squeaky in tone, and when the ship quivered, she did not jar stiffly like a poker hit on the floor, but gave with a supple little waggle like a perfectly balanced golf club. We have made a most amazing discovery, said the stringers one after another. A discovery that entirely changes the situation. We have found for the first time in the history of shipbuilding that the inward pull of the deck beams and the outward thrust of the frames locks us, as it were, more 257 closely in our places, and enables us to endure a strain which is entirely without parallel in the records of marine architecture. The steam turned a laugh quickly into a roar up the foghorn. What massive intellects, you great stringers, have, he said softly when he had finished. We also began. The deck beams are discoverers and geniuses. We are of opinion that the support of the hold pillars materially helps us. We find that we lock up on them when we are subjected to a heavy and singular weight of sea above. Here the Dimbula shot down a hollow, lying almost on her cider writing at the bottom, with a wrench and a spasm. In these cases, sir, you are aware of this steamed plating at the bows, and particularly at the sternway, would also mention the floors beneath us help us to resist any tendency to spring. The frames spoke in the solemn odd voice which people use when they have just come across something entirely new for the very first time. I am only a poor puffy little flutterer, said the steam, but I have to stand a good deal of pressure in my business. It's all tremendously interesting. Tell us some more, you fellows are so strong. Watch us and you'll see, said the bowplates proudly ready behind there. Here's the father and mother of waves, coming. Sit tight, rivets, all a great sluicing comber thundered by. But through 258, the scuffle and confusion, the steam could hear the low quick cries of the ironwork as the various strains took them. Cries like these: easy, no easy, now push for all your strength, hold out, give a fraction, hold up, pull in, shove crossways, mind the strain at the ends, grip now, bite tight, let the water get away from under rand, there she goes. The wave raced off into the darkness, shouting not bad, that if it's your first run, and the drenched and ducked ship throbbed to the beat of the engines. Inside her, all 3 cylinders were white with the salt spray that had come down through the engineer room. Hatch there was white fur on the canvas-bound steam pipes, and even the brightwork deep below was speckled and soiled, but the cylinders had learned to make the most of steam that was half water and were pounding along cheerfully. How's the noblest outcome of human ingenuity hitting, it said the steam as he whirled through the engineer room. Nothing for nothing in this world of woe, the cylinders answered, as though they had been working for centuries, and precious little for £7 to £5 head. We've made 2 knots this last hour, and a quarter rather humiliating for 800 horsepower, is NT it. Well, it's better than drifting astern at any rate. You seem rather less so, shall I put it stiff in the back, than you were 259. If you'd been hammered as we've been this night, you would NT be stifferfif either theoretically of course rigidity, is the thing practically, there has to be a little give, and take we found that out by working on our sides for 5 minutes at a stretch. How's the weather? Sea's going down fast, said the steam. Good business, said the high-pressure cylinder, whack her up, boys. They've given us 5 pounds more steam, and he began humming the first bars of said the young Obadiah to the old Obadiah, which as you may have noticed, is a pet tune among engines not built for high-speed racing liners, with twin screws sing the Turkish patrol, and the overture to the Bronze Horse and Madame Angot, till something goes wrong, and then they render Gounod's funeral march of a marionette with variations. You'll learn a song of your own some fine day, said the steam as he flew up the foghorn for one last bell. Next day the sky cleared, and the sea dropped a little, and the Dimbula began to roll from side to side, till every inch of iron in her was sick and giddy, but luckily, they did not all feel ill at the same time, otherwise she would have opened out like a wet paper box. The steam whistled warnings as he went about his 260 business. It is in this short quick roll and tumble that follows a heavy sea, that most of the accidents happen, for then, everything thinks that the worst is over, and goes off guard, so he orated and chattered, till the beams and frames and floors and stringers and things had learned how to lock down and lock up on one another, and endure this new kind of strain. They found ample time to practice, for they were 16 days at sea, and it was foul weather till within 100 miles of New York. The Dimbula picked up her pilot, and came in covered with salt and red rust. Her funnel was dirty grey from top to bottom. 2 boats had been carried away. 3 copper ventilators looked like hats. After a fight with the police, the bridge had a dimple. In the middle of it, the house that covered the steam steering gear was split. As with hatchets, there was a bill for small repairs in the engineer room. Almost as long as the screw shaft, the forward cargo hatch fell into bucket staves when they raised the iron crossbars, and the steam capstan had been badly wrenched on its bed altogether. As the skipper said, it was a pretty general average. But she's suppled, he said to Mr. Buchanan, for all her dead weight she rode like a yacht. Ye mind that last blow off the banks, I am proud of her buck. It's vera good, said the chief engineer, looking 261, along the dishevelled decks. Now a man judging superficially would say we were a wreck, but we know otherwise by experience. Naturally everything in the Dimbula fairly stiffened with pride, and the foremast and the forward collision bulkhead, who are pushing creatures, begged the steam to warn the port of New York of their arrival. Tell those big boats all about us. They said they seemed to take us quite as a matter of course. It was a glorious, clear, dead calm morning, and in single file, with less than half a mile between each, their bands playing, and their tugboats shouting and waving handkerchiefs, were the Majestic, the Paris, the Touraine, the Servia, the Kaiser Wilhelm Roman II, and the Workendam, all statelily going out to sea, as the Dimbula shifted her helm, to give the great boats clear way. The steam, who knows far too much to mind making an exhibition of himself now, and then shouted, Oyez, 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 princes, dukes, and barons of the high seas, know ye by these presents, we are the Dimbula, 15 days 9 hours from Liverpool, having crossed the Atlantic with 4,000 ton of cargo, for the first time in our career. We have not foundered, we are here, we are not disabled, but we have had time wholly unparalleled in the annals of shipbuilding. Our decks were swept, we pitched, we rolled, we 262, thought we were going to die high, but we did we wish to give notice that we have come to New York, all the way across the Atlantic, through the worst weather in the world, and we are the Dimbula, we area The beautiful line of boats swept by as steadily as the procession of the seasons. The Dimbula heard the Majestic say HMPH, and the Paris grunted how, and the Touraine said we with a little coquettish flicker of steam, and the Servia said hor, and the Kaiser, and the Workendam said hock Dutch fashion, and that was absolutely all. I did my best, said the steam gravely, but I don't think they were much impressed with us somehow, do you? It's simply disgusting, said the bowplates. They might have seen what we've been through. There is a ship on the sea that has suffered as we have there now. Well, I would go so far as that, said the steam, because I've worked on some of those boats, and sent them through weather quite as bad as the fortnight that we've had in 6 days, and some of them are a little over 10,000 tons, I believe. Now I've seen the Majestic, for instance, ducked from her bows to her funnel, and I've helped the Arizona, I think she was, to back off an iceberg. She 263 met with one dark night, and I had to run out of the Paris engineer room one day, Because there was 30 foot of water in it. Of course I don't deny the steam shut off suddenly, as a tugboat loaded with a political club, and a brass band that had been to see a New York senator off to Europe, crossed their bows going to Hoboken. There was a long silence that reached without a break from the cutwater to the propeller blades of the dimbula. Then a new big voice said slowly and thickly, as though the owner had just waked up, "It's my conviction that I have made a fool of myself." The steam knew what had happened at once, for when a ship finds herself, all the talking of the separate pieces ceases, and melts into one voice, which is the soul of the ship. "Who are you?" he said with a laugh. "I am the dimbula, of course. I've never been anything else, except that and a fool." The tugboat, which was doing its very best to be run down, got away, just in time, its band playing clashily and brassily a popular, but impolite. "Well, I am glad you found yourself," said the steam. "To tell the truth, I was a little tired of talking to all those ribs and stringers. Here's quarantine. After that we'll go to our wharf and clean up a little, and next month we'll do it all over again."